Extra, read all about it. The Vatican has new guidelines around talking around weird phenomena, and today we're here to talk about it in depth. So, when are reports of a weeping statue fake news? How credible is the claim that a holy relic led to a miraculous healing? And how should a divine apparition be confirmed? Well, these are the themes addressed in the Vatican's new guidelines on supernatural phenomena, which urge the Catholic Church to take a more cautious approach towards things. This new document, compiled by the Vatican's Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, lays out stricter rules to assess the truthfulness of such claims. The new guidance was presented at a media briefing on Friday and replaces rulings last set out in 1978. Yeah, you heard me right, it's been a whopping 46 years since the Vatican had something to say publicly around rules about things that can't be explained with science. The document recommends incidents of phenomena. They should be maybe carefully assessed, making sure that they're not a fraud, they're not a money-making attempt. This new document warns against creating damage to the unity of the Church and serious errors that could cause scandals and undermine the credibility of the Church. Reports of such phenomena are said to have soared in recent years in this new era of social media, and often spread through disinformation and rumor. So these new guidelines say that as a rule, bishops should issue a nihil obstat, or no obstacle in such cases. So what does that mean? The incident would not be formally recognized as supernatural, but there would be no barrier to worship. The document goes on to say that 5 other decisions can also be issued by bishops, including rejecting the event as supernatural altogether, or even banning the worship of some new phenomena. So under these rules, to be a little more clear, Vatican approval should always be sought by bishops before any conclusions are published, with the Pope able to intervene in exceptional cases. If we're talking about Catholic apparitions, these have been reported for centuries. Ones that are recognized by the Church have prompted pilgrims and popes to visit spots where they are said to have taken place, causing a lot of hubbub. Think about it, you've got millions of folks who flock to France every year. Then you've also got like Fatima in Portugal. That's where the Virgin Mary is alleged to have appeared, promising a miracle. And then, the crowd saw the sun zigzagging through the sky, allegedly. Like, that was officially recognized by the Church back in 1930. It's a known visiting spot. But then there's some recent reports that are kind of more baloney. In 2016, there was an Italian woman that was claiming all these apparitions, which we'll get more on in a minute. Crowds were praying before the statue and they were getting these awful messages about stuff that really isn't true, bad warnings, really out there, and it took 8 years for the local bishop to debunk the story. Yeah, that shrine wasn't mentioned in the new guidance. We might as well talk about it a bit more because it's a heck of a doozy. So this woman's name was Gisela Cardia, and she claimed to be seeing visions of the Virgin Mary in the central Italian town of Trevignano Romano, which is about 30 miles north of Rome, after bringing a statue of Mary with her from a trip to Bosnia, and the statue began to shed tears. So, Bishop Marco Salvi of Civita Castellana, the diocese that includes the area, he's like, I've established a commission of experts in theology, law, and psychology. We're gonna investigate this. Now, eventually the results were published, decreeing a constat de non supernaturalite. So, in English, ixnay on the supernatural. None of this happened, none of these messages that were saying really awful stuff were being spewed, and most of all, this statue was not weeping. Well, if we're talking about claims that are true, pressure was growing on the Vatican to shed light on whether it was aware of a UFO being retrieved from Italy back in the 1930s. Why? Well, there was a lot of claims coming out about the US government's knowledge and handling of contact with alien life. Where do these claims come from? David Grusch, the US Air Force veteran who has talked a lot about this. He used to work with the NRO, and in an interview, he mentioned that there was a UFO, or UAP, that was recovered from Magenta, which is a town near Milan, back in 1933, before becoming a US possession with the help of the Papal State. This lovely whistleblower was among 3 people to recently testify to the House Oversight Committee on these allegations, and he repeated that claim that federal government's been aware for a very long time, almost 100 years. Alrighty, here's a doozy. Have y'all heard about the Chronovisor? No, this isn't some kind of weird hat or goggles. This is a story from an Italian Benedictine monk, Pellegrino Ernetti, who claimed to have used a time viewer which could film the past without sound, and used it to obtain a photograph of the crucifixion of Jesus and view scenes from ancient Rome, including a performance of a very lost play. Now, this was mostly scrubbed away in history until about 2002, when author Father François Brun swore in his book, Le Nouveau Mystère du Vatican, or The New Mysteries of the Vatican, that the Chronovisor not only exists, he learned about it in the early 1960s. A day after he met Father Ernetti for the first time, the two were sailing along the Grand Canal of Venice, discussing biblical interpretations, when Ernetti was like, Theories and interpretations are unnecessary when you can see the truth for yourself. So he explained how the chronovisor functioned, allowing a viewer to see and hear events of past and future. And if you don't believe my word, the full account is in the book. With a little digging, research will find first mentions of the chronovisor in a 1972 article published in the Italian magazine La Domenica del Corriere, entitled "A Machine That Photographs the Past Has Finally Been Invented." And this time machine has kind of been discussed as one of the papacy's best kept or worst kept secrets. Like, it's got all these precious alloys, all these little dials, levers, and yeah, it's got the ability to display a lot of historical events in biblical and in Roman history. So it acts as like kind of a television. Kinda neat though when you think about it. Yes, a lot of folks did take credibility issues with the fact that Ernetti did eventually become a priest and wasn't just a scientist, but like, he used it for his own purposes. Alrighty folks, and to end today off, it's time to travel back a simple 13 years to visit the Vatican, and it's not to do with the chronovisor. So, was Rome visited by some unidentified flying objects in recent time? Well, definitely. And the sightings in the skies over the Vatican City stirred a lot of headlines and a lot of TV news reports in Italy. So according to reports, it seemed like a UFO flap was taking place in Rome, and the strange objects were also recorded on camera several times. The most important one is the footage of an odd luminous formation taken by not one, not two, but 3 security guards stationed in front of the residence of the US ambassador to the Vatican. These were qualified witnesses since they're artillerymen. They're trained experts in air surveillance. It was at 4 a.m. on the night of June 7th when 3 men belonging to the 17th degree Anti-Aircraft Regiment at the Santa Barbara station spotted 3 spherical bright objects hovering in the sky above St. Peter's Dome, which is in the Vatican, like right in the center of Rome, and they filmed the unexpected nocturnal air show with a cell phone. From their point of observation in the Roman Monteverde area, they immediately stopped a police patrol. Now, these guys were well trained in spotting aircrafts, and they were like, this isn't like a commercial plane, this isn't a jet fighter, it's not a balloon, it's wild. They were describing the object's swift maneuvers, mentioning a darting move towards the sky, a delta formation, and a luminous dot suspended at about 300 feet above the ground. They added, there is no way a conventional airplane can do such things. This UFO disappeared and reappeared for a couple of brief moments, with sudden changes of altitude before it darted westbound at a 40-degree angle. Now, the police patrol did take the report very seriously, and the central police station in Rome was immediately alerted. Now, the footage, more than a minute in length, was acquired by the Italian police, pending further investigations. Thanks to the technical background of the witnesses, a lot of TV networks also took the news seriously. There was an anchorwoman for Studio Aperto who introduced the segment on the news saying like, we're gonna show you now an exclusive video of a UFO sighting. This was taken by soldiers. They took this very seriously. There was another journalist, Paolo Capresi, that described it very interestingly, like there are 3 flying objects, they're floating in the air, they're filmed in the sky above Rome. And went on and on about like who took it, where, like people took this very seriously. Like, if you're looking at the footage, there was nothing else in the sky that could be a reference point to give the exact distance and shape of the UFOs. They're spherical. They hover above the Vatican. You can see them appearing and disappearing and changing altitude. Maybe all the UFOs just wanted to say goodbye to the Pope? And that's it for me once again, folks. I've been Alexa, your resident ookie spooky girly. See y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.